Good night again. Today we're talking about the lime, and I have this one here. And this is the usual sort of lime that I've always seen in the supermarket, in the market, wherever you go. And there are limes. I usually see a lime that looks something like this. But the interesting thing about limes is that there's many different types of limes, and what is called a lime isn't really particularly well defined. There's not really a huge uniting factor in what a lime is or isn't, and it's just sort of a catch-all term, but it's for a bunch of citrus fruits, sometimes not even citrus fruits, that all just that can't really be defined very well, or were originally called limes, so they just get squashed together. And in Australia, in particular, we have a whole bunch of limes, not ones you really see very often in the stores or anything, but there's like long finger limes, there's red limes, there's desert limes and outback limes. But just today we're going to be talking about this, and I'm not even sure what this lime is. I think it's a Persian lime, which is that's every lime basically you see in the store is a Persian lime. The other most common one is a key lime, which is slightly smaller, I think. And you can find differing recipes for Persian limes and key limes, but I think they taste quite similar. And you can find, like I said, other kinds of limes, red limes, limes that have been crossed with mandarins, sweet limes to offset the very strong flavor that I'm sure we'll get into a bit later. So yeah, talking about the difference, I mean, the obvious quality of the lime is it's green, very small. Some people think that a lime is a very young, like a baby lemon, an unripened lemon. Because if you have a lemon tree or you see a lemon tree, lemons and lots of other citrus fruit will start off green and then they'll grow. No, a lime it's its own separate thing. Lemons are also more oval shaped. These are very spherical, very round, quite smooth. And I think this is going to be a short sort of review, but I'll see if I can pack it out a bit. The thing with reviewing the lemons, reviewing the limes, is they're not stuff that's usually used to just buy and eat, typically. I mean, usually you might juice them, but even then, most people don't drink lemon juice. They don't drink lime juice. It's much too strong. They might mix it in with something to sort of take away the flavor, or to mask the flavor of something else. You might have heard of kaffir lime, but usually when you go to the store, you don't really see kaffir limes. You see kaffir lime leaves. The kaffir lime plant itself isn't really cultivated so much for the lime fruit as it is for the leaves, and when they use the leaves, it's extraordinarily strong fragrance in the leaves and the fruit of kaffir limes in particular. And so when they use the leaves, I think in Southeast Asia they use it to sort of mask the smell, the odor of cooking snails over there, because it's very strong, and it's used a lot like that as well. And don't get me wrong, limes and lemons, they smell beautifully. So just the smell alone, when we talk about eating things, when we talk about tasting things, a lot of what comes into that is smell. I know we're getting a bit off track here, but I just saw sort of recently a virtual reality experiment that a researcher in Japan had been conducting, where he takes like it's just a blank cookie, it doesn't taste really of anything, and you put on this VR headset, you look at the cookie, the headset and the computer can scan the cookie, and it will project the image of a particular type of cookie, and then the headset also has pipes that will project a scent. So you look at the cookie and the computer will project the picture of a lemon cookie onto the screen, and you're smelling the lemon biscuit flavor. So you take a bite of the cookie, and even though it's just a plain biscuit, it doesn't taste of anything. if you were to just eat it by itself with no technology involved, you can actually taste the lemon itself. So I don't want to dismiss that. When if you've ever gotten fish and you got a wedge of lemon and you squeeze it over, part of that is the nice smell. Even if you open a mandarin and everything like that, it's just a beautiful smell. And lime as well. I have some cut up here. If we look inside, it's a bit paler, but still green inside. And if we smell it, it's beautiful. And that's why if you go into the shop, you go to air fresheners, you go to your detergents, they'll all have lovely, beautiful smells alongside ones with ridiculous names like Summer Sea Breeze and crap like that. You'll see lemon fresh and lime fresh and eucalyptus and all those familiar, wonderful smells. And we just have to hold ourselves back because we just want to chug the detergent like a maniac. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the whole Tide Pod thing because we're here to talk about limes, but part of the reason people were compelled to eat the Tide Pods is they're such a vibrant color and they give off such a beautiful smell, because you don't want your dishes, you don't want your laundry to smell like rubbish, that your lizard brain, your stupid primitive brain, just sort of looks at it and thinks it's food, and you feel compelled to eat it. But luckily, we're hopefully all rational adults, and we're not just chugging detergent. And even we don't want to just take a lime like this and bite straight into it, because similarly with the lemon, we can use, and oranges, we can use the skin here, the rind, for cooking. But really, it's kind of more like a herb almost. We use it to flavor and give dishes a bit more fragrance and to cook and use as a garnish, maybe something very small. We want to take in small doses. It's not like a herb, you wouldn't just pick a bunch of sage and chomp on that. Even parsley, I used to do that when I was very young. I would eat parsley and I would have the time of my life. I thought parsley just tasted great, but most people don't do that, and for good reason. The taste itself is very strong. We sort of want to mix it with other flavors, and that's the thing with lemons and limes. Obviously, these aren't things that people really go out and they want to eat by themselves. We want to cook with them, and we'll get into that a bit later when we talk about, because that's the thing we're really going to contrast this with, is the lemon. Obviously, people pair lemons and limes, and what's the difference between them? Why would we maybe look at picking the lime over the lemon or the lemon over the lime? And we'll get into that. And before we really get into the tasting, I'll just sort of mention, you might have heard English people are called limeys. We'll just sort of go over the history of the lime a little bit, just so we can sort of get it out of the way. So maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but it was very common for people, not just sailors, but sailors mostly, to get scurvy, which is caused from a deficiency in vitamin C. Now, if you're just on land, you don't even have to be eating citrus fruits, really. And I think a lot of modern people, they don't go out of their way to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And we're constantly being hounded by the government and their campaigns to eat more fruits and vegetables. And it's something I can support. But people weren't just keeling over from scurvy. People aren't just keeling over from scurvy today. And the reason for that is you get vitamin C from a lot of places, and you can, as long as what you're eating is pretty fresh, then you can avoid it. But obviously when you're on long sea voyages, they have to preserve a lot of things. They were keeping things in copper, which sort of removes a lot of the ability of the body to digest and metabolize the vitamins. And so on sea voyages, a lot of people were catching scurvy and dying, and it was the major disease for a major cause of death. Even in sea wars, it outranked actual killings by the opposite side. Scurvy just knocked people flat, and the British, I mean, there had been people sort of theorizing about the causes of scurvy for a long time, and it wasn't until a long time until an admiral eventually in the British Navy sort of came up with the idea and had a lot of lime and lemon juice. I think back in those days, limes and lemons were sort of used interchangeably. So he packed a lot of lime and lemon juice, and he went on his long sea voyage, and he got to the end, and not a single person had died of scurvy, and that was completely unheard of. And the British people, they sort of wanted to keep this a secret because, you know, they're constantly in war with other nations, so they don't want they want maximum damage to be inflicted on their navies or to be taken by their navies. So they want them to catch as much scurvy as possible. So they sort of kept that a secret, and they would add lemon juice and to their rum rations that were given to the Navy sailors. And then later on, when they got into trouble, I think against the Spanish, they were sort of rejected from trading with them, and so all the colonies that the British people had, all they could grow on there were limes. So that's what they had to resort to, and eventually, over time, even though it was just used for sailors and maybe some immigrants, sort of evolved to be applied to all British people. Well, that doesn't really have anything to do with tasting fruit, but it's a nice aside and something hopefully you didn't know and you can learn about it. So, like I said, I've got some lime cut up here, and I'm just gonna take a bite and see what happens, and hopefully we can sort of get somewhere with the lime flavors and maybe how different it is to lemons, and why will we choose limes when we have lemons? Such an established, lovely fruit as it is. Not to disparage the lime before I've even tasted it, of course. Okay, well, the main difference, obviously, if you've ever had a lemon or a lime, or even just like the juice or a warhead, or even just tasted it with something, the limes and lemons are very strong, but lemons are sour and they're very tart, whereas limes, not sour so much, they have more of they're more acidic than lemons, and they have more of a bitter taste as opposed to the sourness of the lime, the sourness of the lemon. Sorry, I apologize. The lime sort of messed me up a bit here. Okay, so talking culinarily, because that's really, hopefully my demonstration has sort of helped drive this point home that you really don't want to be eating lemons and limes straight unless you have some sort of wish to test your mettle here. You want to say, I'm strong, I can take it. Oh, excuse me, sorry, I'm strong. You know, I can take the fullness, the strength of the lemon, the strength of the lime, and hey, if that's your thing, go for it. If you've got no other option and you're developing scurvy, go for it. But for most people, I think we want to sort of focus on what we can maybe do with this fruit. Like, what, obviously they're still selling it in stores, so why are people buying it? Well, lemon, usually we might put it on proteins. So typically fish or chicken goes really well with lemon. Now limes, there are lime with fish and lime with chicken recipes, to be sure, but a lot of it, you either sort of, I try to think of it, we put it in two different categories. So you put it with something maybe a bit more lighter that helps break up the strong flavor a bit, break up and complement it. So coconut is very popular with lime, coconut and maybe mint with that, or mango. You know, those things. Obviously, they have flavors themselves. They sort of mix well, and they're more gentle with the lime, and break it apart. So the flavor complements. Though the flavors complement each other rather than just hitting you with that strong lime flavor. Though that's certainly the case. You know, obviously lime is used a lot in alcohol, in cocktails and stuff like that. So if you go and you get like a lime cocktail, you know, you can really take, that's a lot of what you want. You want the punch of the lime. And the other sort of way we might think of using limes culinarily is we use it with also a very strong flavor, usually like ginger and lime pair pretty well together, and they're both very strong flavors, but they're not gonna really just make you salivate and almost choke from the bitterness or the acidity that comes from the lime. So you might see ginger and lime marmalade, and I back in the day when I used to eat toast and eat bread, I was a pretty big marmalade fan, and I used to get ginger and lime marmalade, and you can make it yourself, and it tastes wonderful. So maybe if you're somebody who hasn't really tasted lime or doesn't know what lime's all about, you know, you can always go to the store and you can find something like a lime marmalade and maybe give it a go. And bear in mind, any sort of marmalade, orange marmalade, lime and ginger marmalade is going to be quite strong flavors. So, you know, usually it comes with like the peel embedded in it. So sort of be aware of that. But no, I really enjoy those spreads, and lime's also used in desserts, very similar to lemon. So you have like lemon cheesecake and all those things like that. Same thing, you catch a lot of lime cheesecakes, lime tarts, those sorts of things. So if you are a fan of limes, don't feel afraid. Like there's not much out there for you. You know, there's plenty of ways. People are pretty clever, and they've always figured out ways to work around and work with these flavors and to sort of complement them, and the lime's no exception for that. There's a reason why it is stuck around for so long, despite being something that is not immediately useful in terms of just buying it and thinking, oh, I think I'll have a couple of limes as a snack today. Apart from that, there isn't really much else to say, I don't think, about the lime. You know, similar to the lemon, it's just got a bit of vitamin C. That was why it was so sought after, or so good for staving off scurvy, I suppose. Not as much as a lemon, you know. Again, with lemons and limes and mandarins even, what we really want to be focused on is the flavor and the taste and what it can give us through that. You know, your life's probably not going to be saved because you ate a couple of limes. It's not going to prevent heart disease or something like that. But nonetheless, you know, I think it's always good to eat fruit when you can. Again, though, look, it's a perfectly serviceable flavor when mixed in with other things. I don't want to be disparaging. You know, like I'm not going to say, hey, chilies are bad because you can't just grab a handful of chilies and eat them. Or like cloves are bad because you can't take a spoonful of cloves and just chomp on them. Really, when we talk about lemons and limes and other fruits as well, stuff like quinces, and we really want to talk about what we can do with them, what we can make them work with. And that, so I'm not being negative here, even though I just took a bite of lime and it definitely wasn't pleasant. I'm just saying, don't go to the store and do that yourself. You know, maybe look up some recipes and you think, oh man, I'd really love to work with lime. I've never had it before. I'm looking to broaden my horizons, or I really enjoy lemon lime bitters or daiquiris or something like that. So I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna try and work with lime. instead of just going and chowing down on some limes. So, it's unfortunate because there's not really a lot I can say. It's very hard to sort of rate because obviously it can be used in recipes and I enjoy it in recipes and stuff like that. So it's versatile. It's not like it's not completely useless. It's not like I was rating how my shoe tastes or something like that. But in terms of how do you rate something like that? I don't know. It's very fragrant. It's very pleasant. You can use it in so many different ways. Even kaffir lime leaves. Plenty of recipes out there for those. Go out and try it. I don't even have a rating. Look, I want to encourage people to eat more fruit. Not just eat more fruit, not just eat more vegetables, but be inspired because a lime and everything really, all fruits and vegetables are not just, they're sort of the building blocks from what everything else is made of. And so if you go out there and you get yourself some beautiful fresh ingredients, you'll be amazed with what you can do when you just put it together, when you show a bit of initiative and maybe a bit of creativity and just go out there and make something. And it's so much more satisfying than just ordering something or microwaving something, because you took all these flavors that on their own, maybe they're nothing special, maybe they're completely repulsive, and you put them together and you've got something wonderful. And that's really the magic of citrus fruits like the lime. And really, that's all I've got to say. Just go out there and make something.